This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Wow. Well, this is quite the episode, because not only is this the big show, but look who we have with us. If it isn't Bryan Bishop right there, we've renamed him. That's a hat tip to Gary, and the Wonder Woman herself, Gina Grad. How are you?
Hi, good. This is so exciting.
Two of the best legal minds in podcasting joining Mark Garagos.
So for those who don't know, we have missed Bryan and Wonder Woman because they have been taking a little bit of a sabbatical for the last 2 months, just a wee bit. However, the smarter minds than mine came up with this idea of having them reprise a show, which drops, I believe, at the same time that this show drops. And why don't you tell us, you two, what it is and what you're doing and what the future looks like?
Gina, I'll set you up just by saying my fun employment only lasted 2 months, and frankly, it wasn't that fun.
Same. Wait, you got fun employment?
No, the act of having fun while being unemployed.
Same. We are super stoked. We parted ways with absolutely no drama. I wish I could lie and make something up, but we got nothing. We're all BFF. Bryan's on the show all the time.
I was lie and make something
okay,
up.
it was an explosion.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys.
It was rough.
Adam seriously threw a fist at me. I knocked the table over. It was chaos. The police were called. We got swatted. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So a couple weeks later, Bryan and I are back together with the Bryan and Gina Show, the official podcast of LA Magazine.
Now, wait, I have a question. Is it Bryan and Gina or Gina and Bryan, or do you switch off every week?
It might change week to week.
Yeah, I think we're going alphabetical for now.
We'll see how it tests.
I said when we named the law firm, my father and I fought over which Garrigus would be first and which would be second. So I get those fights.
I got to just change my name to Grad and just be done with it and have no more discussion.
I tried to get my husband to do the same thing.
Here's how my involvement in this came around. Gina, you tell me if yours was somewhat similar. 8:45 a.m. on a Thursday, my phone rings, and it's no caller ID. So I know it's either Adam Carolla or Mark Garagos or maybe the FBI. And I answer, and Bob Bryan. Mark Garagos. I'm like, hey, buddy, how are you? And he's like, hey, I bought LA Magazine and I'm starting this podcast and we want you and Gina to co-host it. And that was kind of the end of the discussion right there. My yes felt very incidental.
Mine was similar, although, Bryan, you have a lower resting pulse, I think, than I do. I'm a little sensitive. I got sensitive nerves sometimes.
I've been through some things.
Thank you. So when Mark says he wants to talk to me, I say, can do, boss. And then I call Gary and I ask him one question. Do you know anything about me being sued or subpoenaed?
He wasn't your boss.
But he's so boss-like.
That's what good employee you are.
So Gary said, not to my knowledge. I do not believe you're being sued. I know nothing about a subpoena. I said, then I'm happy to call Mark Garagos back. And I'm so glad I did. We had a great discussion and we could not wait to get this started.
Yeah, you've got a great, you've got one of the reporters that we first hired there, Michelle McPhee's got a very storied career. And she wrote one of her first stories. It shows you people say is the ownership have any separation from editorial? And she keeps referring to the Armenian mafia, and I keep wanting to hit her upside the head. So that ought to tell you that I can't say a Chinese wall.
Well, I will say, while Mark is frozen, that article that he's talking about with the Armenian mob is in fact referenced in the first episode of the Bryan and Gina Show, which is available to subscribe to right now.
And also a lot of people, first of all, when Mark went cowboy and announced the show before it released, a lot of people were very, very excited. A lot of congratulations, a lot of, hey, where and when can I get it? That kind of stuff. And a few people naturally outside the area, the Los Angeles area, were asking us like, hey, is this going to be like really LA focused? I don't know if I'm really into a podcast all about LA. And I said, it is, but at the same time, like our first story is about a slot whisperer, a con artist, basically, a flim flam lady from in Las Vegas. So I feel like a lot of our content is going to be pretty universally applicable and enjoyed for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting combination. I always got a kick out of you two, as you know, and I missed you almost immediately, although I love Adam's new format. I really do. I think part of his evolution, and I wait until people hear what's happening next with him. I think it'll blow him away. Can't say yet, but it's in the works.
God, I hate when you do that. Yeah. I gotta know.
I honestly don't even know.
I know. I know you can. There's no way you can. So.
Well, here's the problem. When listeners say, what do Bryan and Gina know? Bryan and Gina say, we find out when you find out. So it's the same thing now.
I didn't know anything when I was there.
No.
Same.
And Gary, we've got we're running him around like you wouldn't believe. So it's very exciting. But one of the things, Gina, I didn't tell you, the prerequisites for this, I was going to make you do it on air, is since this is nominally the idea of this podcast that you're on right now is a legal podcast, I wanted Nancy Grace's opinion on the Murdaugh case, because Gary and I we've been deep in the Murdaugh case.
Oh, Mark. Oh, sweet, sweet, innocent Mark that thinks everything is just sunshine and unicorns. Well, guess what? When Mr. Murdaugh or Murdoch or however you want to say Alec, Mr. Alex or Alec gets up there crying about Paw and crying about his wife, well, guess what? I don't believe that at all. You ain't going to pee on my shoe and tell me it's raining, Mr. Murdoch.
No, Mark, you're obviously delighted by this. You must know Nancy Grace. I mean, you must have run across her many times.
Yeah.
I would like to. And I think Gina knows this. I'll be surprised if she doesn't. But I like to take credit for my combination over the many decades with various females who are ex-prosecutors on a yin and a yang. And it started. One of the originals was poor Barbara Olson was on her way to Los Angeles. She was going to audition for a TV show. She was married to Ted Olson, who was the Solicitor General. And she and I were on Larry King's old CNN show virtually every night. She was kind of the right, I was the left. And she fell on 9/11. She died in one of the planes. And yeah, I mean, it's wild. I mean, 20 some odd years ago. That was Nancy was kind of the backbencher on CNN then. And that is what, when Nancy became my kind of foil on Larry King, and we would fight like cats and dogs for years. And then she got her own show, actually with the producer of Larry King, Wendy Walker, and the rest is history. I've unleashed her. Another woman who was down there in the early 2000s was Kimberly Guilfoyle, and who went on to marry the governor, and then is now famously doing the dance in Magaland with Don Jr. And yet a Sonny Hostin, who's now on The View.
Sure, yeah.
Sonny and I used to argue like cats and dogs over the Zimmerman case. So, Gina, if you and I start, you may. The podcast is just the beginning. I have this ability to vault my female foils into their own TV shows, but generally just claim to be an ex-prosecutor.
Okay.
I was going to say I have absolutely zero skills except for I'm a woman, so clearly I know everything about true crime TV. So if that's all we need to do, then sign me up.
I love it.
Hey,
and
Bryan,
Bryan, are you going to expand your horizons here? I mean, I know I kind of thought that for LA Magazine, you were the perfect guy to focus on Hollywood, but you have kind of a wide range,
Well,
so Hollywood.
I think you stumbled across maybe if I may be so bold. I think you stumbled across the perfect co-host for Gina on this show, because I was a longtime reader, subscriber. I loved Los Angeles Magazine. It was like the last magazine I really read in earnest after I let go of Rolling Stone and just all of the other magazines. I always loved their take on LA lifestyle. Excuse me. I love their food takes. I love their articles on the restaurant, the dining scene. And of course, I don't need a lot of arm twisting to talk movies. So I'm pretty.
That was kind of why, when it became apparent that we could do it, I'm like you, because I thought of all, people kept saying, well, magazines are a thing of the past, blah, blah, blah. But, there is giving kind of a digital version of the magazine. And LA Magazine, like you, Brian, it was one of the last ones I actually subscribed to.
Yeah.
And I've noticed for the last couple of years on the newsstand, it's been really kind of reinvigorated in terms of the stories and the eclectic nature of it, and the beautiful art and things of that. And obviously, I just think it's part of the fabric of LA. It's been around for 60 years. And, I do not think that LA is defined by the LA Times. I think that LA is really a lot closer personality-wise to LA Magazine.
Yeah, and I like that they're always, Gina, I like that they were tongue-in-cheek and they had kind of a fun take on things, and they were a little bit playful. Like, it wasn't news like the LA Times. It wasn't underground hipster stuff like LA Weekly, which is a magazine, a publication out here. It was the LA that I knew and liked.
Yeah. No, I was going to say the same thing. Between the absolutely incredible reporting, which Brian and I have now jumped inside of firsthand, and the lifestyle stuff, and not just like, we've all heard of Hollywood Boulevard. Thank you. That's not for insiders. The stuff that makes LA really special, not just from the outside, but from the inside. It's phenomenal. It really is.
And if I could jump in, I agree with both of you. And what I've been really enjoying, I've been a longtime reader of LA Magazine as well, but what I've been enjoying as I've read more and more in these past few weeks as we've gotten this thing going, is that unlike the LA Times, when I click on a story and read a headline, I'm not exactly sure what the angle is going to be or what the take is going to be. And unfortunately, in the past few years with the LA Times, I can tell you what the story is just, without even reading it, without reading a headline. It's all goes in one way. And I like that LA Mag has a nice measured take and different opinions depending on the scenario.
Right. There's different voices, which is one of the things that discourse is all about. So we're very excited to have you two. I'm very excited to watch this first episode. Gary, Saturday, he's not going to do it obviously on St. Patrick's Day. Gary Patrick Smith.
Well, there you go.
Good point.
It's miraculous that I'm even recording it on St. Patrick's Day. I didn't stand in protest, but no, I believe it will be Saturday. But I can tell you for sure that if you're listening to this, it's available right now, and it's called The Bryan and Gina Show. You can search for it on any podcast platform. You can check it out on the LA Mag YouTube channel. There's a YouTube component of it as well. If you listen on Spotify, there'll be a video component on Spotify as well. So we're loaded for bear. We're recording our next one very shortly, and we've been throwing around articles in the past few days of what we want to do next. The future is very bright, and we are very excited. I hope I can speak for Bryan and Gina when I say that we're really having fun kind of being back together and sort of figuring this out. And it's not a finished product. It will evolve as we get used to it and as we start doing it, but we have no shortage of ideas and segments that we're excited about and stories that we're very excited to talk to the authors and highlight their work.
It's like going to a really good buffet and like not knowing what to pick first. You're like, wow, I've got all these stories that we can explore. There was one that just literally posted yesterday, I think, about the history of LA becoming a real foodie town with Wolfgang Puck and all of his contemporaries. And I emailed Gary and Gina right away. I'm like, I definitely want to talk about this. This is fascinating.
Yeah, this is like at the buffet. We don't bother with the buttered noodles. We go right for the crab's leg. LA Magazine. Oh, it's all crab leg and ribeye and prime rib and steak and deliciousness with the LA Magazine.
I agree with your analogy, Gina. It's all the best kinds of foods, but to your point,
filler.
But to your point, they're very different kinds of foods, because shortly after we sent over that article about the food scene in LA and how it evolved, that was, in the 1980s, we also sent over an article about what was released at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show this year. What's coming in tech in the next 5 years, and how will things like color changing cars, impact the landscape of LA when people are driving around and all of a sudden they decide they want their car to be blue when it used to be white. Just stuff like that that's going to be universal to most cities, but it's also going to impact LA.
Well, and I imagine with all the car chases we have here, it'll make APBs more confusing.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Very good. I like that point.
Thank
you. I'm going to, before we close off you two, I'm going to ask you for a prognostication for the next week, because in the legal world, at least, as I sit here in New York, I'll give you the background, and then you guys can tell me what you think. Unlike California, in New York, in the state court at least, one of the last acts by a prosecutor before they indict you is to invite you to testify in front of the grand jury. So,
oh God,
last invitation you ever want to get, and they have now invited Donald, the former president, to testify in front of the grand jury. Through his lawyer, Joe Tacopina, he has declined that most gracious invitation. Yeah. I have a two-part question for both of you. We'll leave it at that after your answers, unless Gary wants to weigh. I think Gary should weigh in. First of all, do you think he will be indicted? And second of all, I'll talk about the merits of that case on Sunday with Gary. But second of all, do you think that helps or hurts his presidential campaign?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I have thoughts from a very cynical standpoint of somebody who consumes the news and works in the news and deals with the news at a rapid rate. I think he will be indicted. I don't think anybody cares. I think for the people that want to see him go down, I think they'll be too exhausted by then to care. And for the people who love him, it makes him a martyr for their cause. And I just need a nap when I think about it.
That's interesting. I mean, it's historic. It would be historical in the sense that I don't think a president's ever been indicted, former or sitting, obviously. So that would be, at least some people would care. But I think John Oliver on his HBO show has a running gag where it's like, we got him this time, right, you guys? And balloons come down, the whole thing. It's like, no, you never got him. So I'll believe it when I see it. That said, as we record this, I was looking at Twitter in the moments leading up to this recording, and apparently they're letting Mark, you might know more about this. Apparently, prosecutors are alerting local police stations to be aware of some potential riot, violence, whatever next week. So, again, I'll believe it when I see it, but it seems like this is as close as it's gotten.
It's very interesting from a process standpoint. Or, as a defense lawyer, I think that the theory upon which, at least what's been reported, mind you, grand juries are supposed to be secret. This is about as secret as well, I won't say what I was going to say, but Please. This has not been very secretive. This is not the best, to my mind, this is not the best theory in the world to indict a former president. To your point, Bryan, you would hope that it would be something that was more concrete as opposed to somebody who got, the irony of all this week is that First Republic is teetering on the edge, if you believe everything, and they got $30 billion worth of a lifeline. And this whole thing with Stormy Daniels started because First Republic submitted a suspicious activity report on Michael Cohen for his $130,000 that he took off of his HELOC. And so the same week that First Republic is having to require $30 billion in deposits is the same week that this is coming to a head here. So
coincidence?
Exactly. Now the question becomes, because this is a state court matter, and he would normally be told, okay, we're going to unseal the indictment, or the indictment is already unsealed and your arraignment is on such and such a date. What if he just says, go pound sand, I'm going to stay in Florida? Because then that would start the extradition process. And under the extradition process, it's a governor to governor. So then Ron DeSantis would make the final call on whether or not that Trump gets extradited to New York. Because what if Trump
isn't Trump his biggest obstacle in a supposed presidential?
But at the same time, I just saw recently and I think it was on Fox News, somebody go into a Florida diner, I believe, and they were asking people in Florida, who do you support? And it was almost uniformly Trump, including the woman who was wearing a DeSantis for president t-shirt.
Nice.
Who said, I support DeSantis, but I'll vote for Trump. And so it's a very unusual political calculation. If Trump wants to force DeSantis to sign the extradition to send him back to New York, if Trump says, I'm just not going, I'm just going to sit here at Mar-a-Lago, I'll wait until I'm president, and then you can't do anything about it because you can't proceed criminally against me when I'm president.
That is so fascinating, because you think, of course, they're going to be aligned, but no, they're rivals now. It's fantastic. And I'm just wondering, with all the drag queen bills and stuff, please tell me there is a drag queen in Florida named Rhonda Santis.
Not bad.
Please.
Well, if there is, you guys have to have Rhonda on the podcast.
You know, playing out Mark's bizarre
here it is.
Good. Oh, yeah, this is it. Let's watch it.
Hi, Lawrence. First off, Metro Diner here. I got a question for you. Ready? All right. 2024. Who's pumped up for the election? All right. Rapid fire. Who's your man? Who's your woman?
My man, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Christy, no. Christy, no.
Who's your man?
Trump.
Or woman?
I'd say Trump.
Trump. A lot of Trump fans.
Trump and Nikki Haley.
And Nikki Haley.
She picked
Trump
the
and
VP.
Nikki Haley.
All right. So far, a lot of Donald Trump. I see Governor DeSantis. What about President DeSantis?
I like it. I like it.
Who's your pick?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Trump or DeSantis? I'm either or.
So you're right in the middle.
Yes, I am.
What you pumped up for?
I am super pumped.
I feel like we need a little bit of a break from election to election. It goes from one.
Oh my!
I don't know why there was Smash Mouth playing underneath all of that. That's the danger of live pulling clips while the show's going on. So my apologies.
That is diegetic sound that's coming from the diner.
Until watching that, I had assumed that it would be Trump and Carrie Lake. But now I tend to think that maybe Nikki Haley's prognosticating here.
Yeah, Nikki Haley seems to have picked up speed, but back when Carrie Lake was running, I mean, she was the internet's darling. She was dunking on CNN reporters. I mean, her clips were super viral. She was, it was great.
There's one in particular, Gary, as you know, that she just won me over, and it was her with a CNN reporter.
I can find it.
You two saw this, but this, I thought, for whatever way, whatever political wind you blow in which direction, this to me is the woman has game, and I personally just love the encounter, and hopefully Gary will find it and play it. I will get your two reactions to it.
Hi. Gary. Hi.
Nice to see you. Count off and CNN.
You don't have a mask on anymore. What's going
we're
on?
outside. Do you have a minute to
Well,
chat?
we're 6 feet apart.
Do you have a minute to chat?
I'll do an interview. As long as it airs on CNN Plus. Does it still exist? I didn't think so, because the people don't like what you guys are peddling, which is propaganda. Thank you.
They're still holding hands.
Wow. You never seen that before, Gina? That's my favorite. How do you think I had that so quickly? That stays on my desktop.
That was Incredible.
I mean, you got to give it to her. I don't agree with virtually anything that comes out of her mouth, but I find that to be just brilliant.
That is
and
objectively
we know Trump
fine.
likes that kind of aggressiveness, that kind of giving it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that the niceties are so out the window when it came to, old school politics. Doesn't matter what side, you're going to shake their hand. You're going to say, well, I don't know about that. And then you're going to go talk a bunch of crap afterwards. Those days are over, and I thoroughly enjoyed that clip.
That was kind of my feeling as well. I get excoriated every time I laugh hysterically about it. But I thought, yeah, I'll do it with CNN Plus. Oh, that's right, it doesn't exist anymore.
I'm just sad. Are we done with Sarah Palin? Because I'm not done with Sarah Palin. I love Sarah. I wish she would come back into the spotlight. I love that she is the woman with, I decided that I'm going to take credit for the bikini and the AR-15, even though I know that wasn't really me. But are we really done with her? Where is she?
Didn't she have like 2% of the vote for Congress or Senate or something?
She was, speaking of New York, she was here in Judge Rakoff's court, and he did a move that was amazing. She was suing for defamation.
Yep.
And the jury was out, and he announced that he was going to dismiss the case. And her lawyers, as you would expect, went kind of nuts about it. And he was dismissive. It's been reported, saying, "Oh, the jurors don't know." Well, they brought the jurors, and the jurors said, "Well, yeah, not only we know, we got push alerts that he was going to dismiss the case while we were deliberating." Yep. That's something. It's a whole new world we live in 2022 and 2023.
If I could just follow up on Mark's scenario where Trump stays in Florida until he's elected president, I find that a little far-fetched that he wouldn't campaign in another state. He wouldn't come to certain parts of California or New York even to fundraise. I mean, it's a fun idea, but I don't know, is that even remotely possible?
There's you can play it out because it's fun as a legal hypothetical. Would he only go to red states or states where the governor would assure him, "I'm not going to extradite you"? So yes, I'll go to Ohio where Mike DeWine is. I will go to any other state that you can name off a bunch of them that have Republican governors, as long as I get an assurance that when I do the rally, I can come in and I go out. Now, what could New York do? Well, they can't intercept Trump one. Because that would be presumably an issue. Would the feds get involved? I doubt it. I don't think. Can you imagine the look that Biden's Department of Justice was trying to enforce a state warrant out of New York against his rival? I mean, the laptop crowd would go nuts. Oh. So. Right. So it's kind of an I mean, as a lawyer's thinking under the extradition rules, it's a very fascinating idea.
I'm sure legal classes right now, professors are having a great time with this.
Right, exactly. Well, could this ABC? I can see the multiple choice. Could the feds do it? Would this happen in California with Gavin Newsom? And then what if Trump wanted to come to Orange County?
That's what I'm saying.
To do a Orange Coast fundraiser, and he had Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I mentioned before, with him, and Gavin Newsom is the governor. Would he issue a extradition warrant on Trump, who is the putative father-in-law of his ex-wife?
That's the question. How much does he hate his ex-wife?
Yeah, seriously.
I think that's what it comes down to.
It's actually how much does his current wife, who was Jane Doe number 3 in the Harvey Weinstein case,
correct,
his ex-wife. Yeah, there's a lot of intersections here in the world of politics and our popular culture.
Yeah, right. This is ostensibly a legal podcast. Do we have a quick second just to ask Mark a legal question as it pertains to LA?
Yes.
So bringing it back to Los Angeles Magazine. Okay, here's a question I've long had about life in Los Angeles, you'll often, because there's Los Angeles City for people outside the area, and there's other cities within the county. There's Beverly Hills, Culver City, Glendale, on and on and on and on. And you'll often see those cars, police cars, for example, driving around town or on the freeway or whatever. And I thought to myself, Beverly Hills cop. I'm not in Beverly Hills. I'm in Culver City or wherever I am. Can they pull you over for a traffic violation? Can the highway patrol get you on the streets? What is the jurisdictional thing for all
it's an interesting question because I've litigated this. I've litigated cases where the highway patrol is on a street, a non-highway.
Because they're like getting off and turning around or getting gas.
Exactly. And I've challenged their authority there with mixed results. The result that I have that almost is uniformly is if they are outside of their jurisdiction and they're not pursuing you, but they're outside, for instance, they're on a break, they go to a restaurant that's outside of, for instance, Pasadena decides they're going to go down to San Marino or Alhambra and they want to get a meal there, and then they arrest you for some traffic violation. I think you would succeed on the challenge to their jurisdiction at that point, because I don't think they have jurisdiction.
I always wondered that.
I was once told that the California Highway Patrol are the only people who have jurisdiction on the highways, so that if you were to see a Burbank cop while you're on the freeway, you can trust with almost 100% certainty that they're not going to pull you over for anything beyond a major, accident or anything that's just that they couldn't ignore. Like, you don't have to worry. Right. You don't have to worry about getting a speeding ticket from a local cop if you're on an interstate. Is that correct?
Well, there's nuances to that I could get into, but it's a good rule of thumb with many exceptions.
Yeah. Makes sense.
There you go. LA Magazine.
Go within 7 miles of the speed limit, and this question won't matter.
Fair point, but sometimes you got to get somewhere.
No, I understand.
Going downhill.
Well, thank you two. I'm excited to watch the first one.
Thanks,
we
man.
are so excited. Thank you.
Where do we find it, Gary?
So one more time, you can find it anywhere that you get podcasts. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere that you get your podcasts. Just search for The Bryan and Gina Show, and you will see it is tagged from LA Mag. And you can also find it on the LA Mag YouTube channel as well. So if you want to watch it there, or you can watch it on Spotify, it very much is a visual show as well as a podcast. And I think that you get a little bit of a different experience both ways. And I think they're both very, very good, but they're also different. So be sure to check them out in both places and subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, anything you can. We appreciate the help, and we're very, very grateful to be doing it. And thank you once again, Mark, for thinking of all of us and giving us the opportunity to kind of reunite and try something new that I think is going to be very fun and exciting.
I love it. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Bryan. Gary, as always, I'll see you on Bard at the altar of Bard on Sunday.
Sunday morning.
Thank
I'll see you
guys.
Then. All right.
Love you.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.